With that, let's welcome in Jonathan Schanzer, Executive Director of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Lizzie Savetsky's here as well, pro-Israel activist, recently attended an event with Netanyahu after his UN General Assembly speech. Welcome to you both, and thanks so much for coming on. Jonathan, I'll start with you here. What are the non-negotiables that Netanyahu needs to see in President Trump's 21-point plan for Israel to sign on?
Sure. Number one, the first thing is the hostages. There's 20 that are estimated to be alive right now, another 28 deceased. All of them need to return home. This is the one gaping wound the Israelis need to, they have to reconcile with this in some shape or form. The other is that Hamas leaders need to leave the Gaza Strip. The Israelis cannot accept an end of conflict agreement where the organization that killed 1,200 people in one day and that took those 250 plus hostages on October 7th of 2023, there is no way that Bibi will allow this to remain. You cannot have this same leadership. From there's going to be some challenges, right? I can imagine that Netanyahu will not like the idea of the Palestinian Authority having some kind of a role in the future of the Gaza Strip. But these are things that I believe the two men can work out if they sit down, as they will today, and grapple with the realities of the war where we are. This is a long war now, almost 2 years. That's a long time for the Israelis to be fighting so close to home. So I know that there are many in Israel, probably the prime minister included, who would like to see this come to an end.
That's right. We're still watching here at the White House. That live picture there is Prime Minister is set to meet with President Trump here momentarily. Lizzie, the plan here, though, calls for temporary Palestinian Authority rule in Gaza and amnesty options for Hamas leadership. Many Israelis mistrust the Palestinian Authority. Do you think that the Israeli public will accept this? And even if it's a stopgap, but also if this does not go well here, how does the public view Prime Minister Netanyahu?
Well, I think that we have to be realistic about who we're dealing with here. And I don't think that Hamas or, any Palestinian leadership that we've ever seen would be willing to lay down their arms and give up their political power in exchange for peace, because their only goal has ever been martyrdom. I visited a neighborhood ruled by the Palestinian Authority in Judea and Samaria with luxury apartment buildings that were only available to terrorists who killed Jews and their families. They are rewarded. The Palestinian Authority has this program called Pay for Slay, where they reward terrorism. So I don't know how anyone could be comfortable with them being the so-called moderate temporary leader here. This is, they're really, in my eyes, not much better than Hamas. They have the same ideology. And we're talking about, this is a group of people who have been ruled by radical Islam for decades and decades. So I'm skeptical, to say the least,
Sure.
If this is just going to be another temporary peace deal that leads to ultimately more war and more death.
Especially because we've seen efforts to bring aid into Gaza, and yet that has been disrupted many times again by local leadership there. Let's talk about what was also discussed at the UN just last week. Netanyahu hinting that an Israeli victory could expand President Trump's Abraham Accords. President Trump has called for more peace in the region. Here's part of that conversation.
Victory over Hezbollah has made peace possible with our two Arab neighbors in the north. Victory over Hamas will make peace possible with nations throughout the Arab and Muslim world. Our victory would lead to a dramatic extension and expansion of the historic Abraham Accords, which President Trump brokered between Arab leaders and myself 5 years ago.
Jonathan, what could this really look like?
There's a lot of opportunity right now, and I think Netanyahu has got his finger on something hard to deny. First of all, Syria, they're already talking about a possible security arrangement with Israel, which could yield eventually a normalization agreement. If things continue to go even somewhat positively in Lebanon, if we see the eradication of Hezbollah, it's already a weakened terror group. If it is actually finally sidelined, I could imagine normalization with Lebanon. The Saudis have long been in line for a possible normalization agreement. This is something that Donald Trump has had his eye on now for 5 years and counting. He sees this as unfinished business. And I think the Saudis, if we're to be honest, they're already normalized with Israel. They just haven't done the handshake on the White House lawn. But then after that, it gets really interesting, too. You saw the leader of Indonesia get up at the United Nations, and he declared openly, he said that there is no peace in the region without security for Israel, and he ended his speech with the word shalom, which means peace in Hebrew. This is the most populist Muslim nation in the world, 200 million people. This is a country that also could go the way of normalization. So I think Benjamin Netanyahu understands exactly what's on the table here. It's yet another reason why ending the war on the right terms is exactly in his interests and why he's taking this meeting today with Donald Trump.
Yeah, and whatever is discussed here, Hamas will still have to endorse that deal. But President Trump, he did address at the UNGA, and he blamed Hamas for blocking peace and warning that unilateral recognition of the Palestinian state would reward terrorism. He's brought that up several times. Take a listen.
As everyone knows, I have also been deeply engaged in seeking a ceasefire in Gaza. Have to get that done. Have to get it done. Unfortunately, Hamas has repeatedly rejected reasonable offers to make peace. We can't forget October 7th, can we? Now, as if to encourage continued conflict, some of this body is seeking to unilaterally recognize a Palestinian state. The rewards would be too great for Hamas terrorists for their atrocities. This would be a reward for these horrible atrocities.
And Lizzie, that was something that Netanyahu also addressed. He said this is about a fight for Jewish statehood rather than giving a Palestinian statehood. Your thoughts?
You know, I can't help but think of the words of Prime Minister Golda Meir, who said, you cannot make peace with someone who has come to kill you. It's not just about the reward. It's how would it even look? I mean, we're talking about a group of people. Their only ideal that they've ever had is the destruction of Israel. It is not the Israelis that need to acknowledge a Palestinian state. It is the Palestinians who need to acknowledge the right for a Jewish state to exist in the world, period. And that has never happened under any Palestinian leadership since before even Israel existed as a modern state. Right. So, you know, they've been offered a two-state solution. They've been offered peace deals, land for peace exchanges multiple times. They've never accepted it because they simply don't want the Jewish people to exist in the region at all. And that is really the bottom line. So people just need to acknowledge reality that it's not Israel that's blocking the way here. It is the Palestinian leadership.
Right. And more broadly speaking, we heard from Netanyahu last week saying it's hard to recognize terrorist organizations that chant death to Israel and also death to America and try to go at it from a realistic negotiation point. We'll watch and see what happens. Jonathan and Lizzie, thank you very much for joining us here today.